Hi everybody, I want to make this video about whether or not I think Insomniac should make a director's cut for Marvel Spider-Man 2. Now, Marvel Spider-Man 2 is a great game. It is not perfect. The symbiote storyline is an amazing, rich storyline to do. With two Spider-Men involved, it's pretty... it's gonna be an interesting one. With villains like Mysterio and Sandman and all these great rich villains to add into the story as side missions or not, and Venom taking the full front of the story and Kraven being a catalyst, I think it's pretty evident that director's cuts are ways for developers to add what they could have added and what they wanted for their full vision of their story. And they've been done for so long, it's more apparent. And honestly, with Marvel Spider-Man 2, I think it deserves one. At least to fix a lot of the problems with it. Whether in the mixture of pacing problems and also just with the opening, it was a great start, but as the game stretched on, you can tell with certain characters' roles like the Lizard and others like Sandman and Venom, you can tell there are a lot of cuts where there shouldn't have been, and Venom is the biggest victim of it. Even his gameplay needed more to his moveset to make it feel fresh and not as clunky at times. Overall, it's a brilliant, great story, but it fumbles in a lot of execution. And I think a director's cut could do this game justice. Maybe fix a lot of the problems with content and also giving it some room to truly be greater. No pun intended. But in some aspects, I think this game could be even better than it was. Fixing problems like Kraven killing half the villains off screen, fixing the pacing problems with Harry and Venom not coming in till later in the game. The first game had its pacing problems, sure. You had Mr. Negative, which his role in the pacing of that game wasn't perfect either, which was made more apparent when Doc Ock showed up near the end. And I think with Marvel Spider-Man 2, there's room to improve a lot of things. Venom really needed a little bit more to make it feel fresh and unique. And I think Harry as Venom was the perfect choice. I will be making a video about that at some point in the future, as you'll be seeing on screen. Here will be the thumbnail. I also think there's room to add content that wasn't added, in enemy types and special things that I think were cut. And fixing a lot of the gameplay and story problems would be a major thing to do, especially with a director's cut. And I know that there's a lot of people that say director's cuts are pretty much ways of making more money, and pretty much they're just, they're not really worth it. But in Spider-Man 2's case, I think it is worth it, especially to fix a lot of the problems that a lot of people have with the game. In some regards, the game is a bit short, especially compared to the act structure of the first. Sure, there are a lot of great moments, but they're a lot of overshadowed by a lot of moments that are just feel off or weird. Venom, or Harry as Venom, works in some regard, but I still think in some regards that there needs to be more. And there was so much cut from Harry and Venom and Peter and all that stuff that the game kind of falls short in some regards. And a director's cut, I believe, could fix a lot of the issues many players have with the game. With some of his most gruesome acts and some of his backstory probably being left on the cutting room floor, being done halfway off screen, which for me, was a major problem. I felt it was a little bit off in some regards, and I just didn't like it. Also, I feel that for some of the things that were cut, like the character parts of the menu, the chat thing from the first game that's in the menu, that and in Miles Morales. I think both features were in Miles Morales, and what's it called? Characters like the Lizard and Venom could be fixed with a director's cut in ways that probably would be better off. And honestly, if we could peacefully try to get this made, it would be amazing. Because I feel that Marvel Spider-Man 2 is amazing, but it's not perfect. And the reason why it's not perfect is because there was so much cut and so many things that just weren't working and all that. Now, do I think they would have the time and the budget to do it? Yes, absolutely. I think time-wise, probably not completely, but the budget, of course. Because mainly, you're taking what you originally had, adding on to it, and fixing things, adding more, making it longer, making it better. And with the story being cut so quickly, some things cut it out to make a deadline, which shows in the later half of things, it just doesn't feel good for me. I don't like that. It feels off. It feels off-putting. And I think there's a chance you can make it better by adding and bringing that some of the stuff back, and also tweaking what that was already there. I feel the Venom section sometimes feels a bit clunky, especially playing as him. There's not really a whole lot to his gameplay. And it just feels like a modern version of Ultimate Spider-Man. And for this game to really feel fresh, I think there's a chance you need to add to that. And also fix Kraven. You could add some new side missions and stuff like that. But the main thing I would do is fix the story. Have a complete, true story, and fixing a lot of the holes that make no sense. The meteor and the last bits of the game are the biggest victims of what really needs to be tweaked and fixed. Heck, even adding a few extra symbiotic enemies would be nice. A lot more enemies or enemy factions would be a lot better, because that's one gripe with this game that does show. There's not many enemies. There's not really a whole lot. Compared to the first game, which you had thugs, Fisk enemies, some of them did feel the same, but they just didn't. They had a different coat of paint, sure, but sometimes there was a lot of different stuff. You had the Fable enemies, you had, I believe, the Raft enemies, you had the Rikers enemy types, and all that. In this game, you have thugs, hunters, symbiotes. That's it. That's it. That's it. And you have the robots as well, but I don't count them as a faction, which is majorly disappointing for me. So hopefully we could get a director's cut, and I think somebody should go and ask Insomniac. We can peacefully, influence, them to make something. I would love the DLC, but I would like the base game to be fixed more. And for me, that's the most important.